because just because your contract is fixed price doesn't necessarily mean that you can't recover for these unexpected tariffs. If you have the right clauses in your contract, there may be an avenue for you to take to seek some recovery.
In that regard, particularly for a federal government contractor, there typically are the usual FAR clauses. Are there certain FAR clauses that, from your perspective, allow recovery if those are in or incorporated into the contracts? Could you give us some examples, maybe, of that?
Sure. So again, depending on the type of contract,
Yep.
you may have a duty-free entry clause that you can take advantage of. That's at FAR 52225-8. You could have different economic price adjustment clauses known as EPA clauses. These are a little bit more rare to have in your contract, but those allow for increases to the contract price, typically up to 10% for unexpected economic impacts. There's also FAR clauses that are targeted at specific taxes or duties that you could argue a tariff falls underneath of, such as 52229-3 that speaks to federal taxes. For a while at the beginning of the year, there were also retaliatory tariffs being imposed on us by other countries in reaction to our tariffs. And there's FAR clauses that speak to services that are being provided outside of the US, where that may come into play for taxes on foreign fixed price contracts. Those are just a few of the key terms to keep an eye out for. The other types of clauses too that we always try to make contractors aware of is if a tariff is impacting your performance, you can argue underneath of the relevant default clause of your contract that impact to your performance is excusable because it's a factor that's outside of your control. So while that gets you time and not necessarily money, if it's the tariffs are really impacting your ability to perform, there's an avenue for some relief in that regard as well.
Yeah. All pretty important. Those are great examples. So Jackie, going forward, and you guys have both illuminated us on the various tariffs that now are still part of the equation. What would your advice be for contractors? What they need to think about as they move forward?
Yeah, good question. So I would say because these tariffs, the costs are still there. If you are dealing with a fixed price contract, it's really important at the outset when you're looking at a contract opportunity to think about how are you going to address those tariff costs